Welcome to the Carl O'Connor podcast with myself, Carl O'Connor, and my co host, Craig Lynch. Thank you for listening, and please keep your eyes out for further podcasts. Enjoy. Craig, how's it going?
Not too bad, Carl. You got me out of bed early on a Friday morning.
Uh, this is in the making. This is in the making a few months. I spoke to you about it, and I suppose it just went under the back burner and pulled it out of the bag last week. And you said you were more than happy to be the co-host on the podcast, and yeah, sure, we kind of just went for it, didn't we?
Yeah, I suppose why not? Like with the time we have on our hands now and been stuck in the house 24/7, it kind of feels like Groundhog Day. But I suppose to do something new like this, sure, why not? Why not have a chat with um GA people and interesting people and even yourself? Like why not?
Yeah, no, and hopefully, I suppose over the number of podcasts that we do, that we get on some guys that we definitely even learn from, and but definitely get some good stories and insights into their career. Whether it be a coach or a player or any sort of person involved in sport or GA, So no, I'm looking forward to it, and just to have that general chit chat, and again, not to have such a formal conversation, and feel have a kind of informal vibe to it, and me and you'd be very good at that anyway, I'd say,
Yeah,
especially after.
we'll have to live up to the Tommy and the Hector levels.
I don't know about that, but maybe our exploits on Lou TV during the championship. If we could bring some of those moments back, I'm sure we'll do okay.
I never got asked back after that, Carl. I was devastated, and I
I think
even made the cameraman laugh.
I think they were afraid what they might have created. He'd have seen it. He said, "No, we have to nip that in the bud." Or maybe Tommy Dornan put in a complaint about you. I don't know. You give Tommy a bit of abuse.
It's only started now, this new transfer coming around, so he's getting
Oh.
plenty of stick and abuse, so he is. So fully deserved.
Before we kick on, how's everything? All good?
It is, yeah. I suppose it's nice to have a bit of time to myself and think about, I suppose, everything in my life and reflect, because obviously we're not out and about. Like I'm up here in Newry on my own, more or less, with the girlfriend, and family is not around for the first time ever, So it is nice to have a bit of thinking time, and I suppose do little projects like this and continue the Gaelic Goalie on YouTube. It is nice, but at the same time, like when I woke up this morning, I forgot what day it was.
Yeah. It's definitely like Groundhog Day every day, and look, um, yeah, look, I don't know. I think anyone you speak to, it's just all about, oh, sure, look, we're nearly there, and better days are to come, and etc. etc. But it doesn't really make things any better.
No,
I
it's
can't
nice
be
though.
saying.
Like it's the only thing I'm relying on, Carl, at the minute is a bit of slagging and debate in WhatsApp groups. Spent all
Well,
last night deciding who was great, or Michael Jordan or LeBron James.
well, I tell you what, Crouch, I can guarantee there'll be some slagging after this goes out. So there'll be plenty of slagging in the WhatsApp groups after that.
There's some
So,
slagging if lads seen that crease jersey you're wearing. I tell you that.
well, that won't be going on out there. This is audio only. Here, like I'm like you. I've only bought a house during the pandemic in the middle of the summer there, so I'm still learning how to look after myself. The girlfriend looks after me a wee bit too much, so I still have to learn how to stand on the 2 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we kick on.
Who do we have today, Carl?
So for the making our debut is the podcast, and our debut number one podcast. Uh, First guest is Cully Hanna, and I'm a legend. I'm gonna throw it out there. Ciaran McKeever.
I thought you were going to say Francie McMullen there.
Yeah, so we've Ciaran coming on. Obviously, I know Ciaran personally. I was met him through the GA scene, and became quite close friends with him ever since. And some of the stuff I think we're going to chat about have never really asked him before, to be honest. So I'm very interested in seeing his take and some of the stories on his own career. You know, with Armagh, with Cullyhanna, with international rules teams, even. So yeah, it should be interesting. Ciaran's known as a bit of a hard man, so I wonder will we get to see some sort of a soft side to him.
Yeah, no, GA legends. I remember seeing him in Apple Green a couple of years ago. You know, and looking across and them feeling the diesel and me thinking to myself, geez, there's Ciaran McKeever. You know, he's probably looking across going, what the hell is this fella looking at back? You know, but he's no, he's definitely a GA legend and well known around their circles, especially up here in the northeast.
Yeah, look, Ciaran will tell you he's you know, wasn't the player that was going to score you 7 or 8, 9 points. He wasn't the most skillful player out there, but you know, he was definitely a solid defender, and again, you know, wore his heart on his sleeve when he played, and especially, you know, he's very, very proud of representing Armagh and Ireland. So looking forward to this chat.
Yeah, no, his experience with the players he's played with, the groups he's been involved in, you know, managers he's been with, like it's going to be an impressive chat. Like the man, I'd say, has a wealth of experience when it comes to GEA and different personal experiences he had over the time.
So will we get him on?
Get him on.
Let's go. So Crouchy, we're ready to welcome Ciaran into the chat. Ciaran, how's things? How have you been keeping?
Yeah, not too bad. I suppose we're living in strange times this past 10, 12 months, you know, so you know, it's just trying to adapt to that and keep yourself occupied and as busy as possible at the present time without football, so which is difficult at times.
I believe you're going to be keeping yourself busy away from football for the next or for the rest of your life after a bit of good news last week.
Yeah, I suppose myself and Ciara had a wee boy there last Thursday, like so Ciaran. So I suppose that there's breaking the monotony of the lockdown for both of us. You know, I'm just living on caffeine at the minute, no sleep at night. Trying to walk the dog twice a day to get out of duty. So yeah, all's good, and hopefully long may it continue.
Ciaran, you'll be able to tell Ciaran when he's a wee bit older that he's a lockdown baby.
Yeah, we haven't. You know, we were just funny enough. We were laughing last night, saying we'll have to dress him up today because he's just going about in baby grows full time because there's nowhere to go. So we'll dress him up today and maybe take him for a spin.
He's working from home like everyone else, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. No. How's everything else? Work life. You're just on a break at the minute. How's the family? Everyone keeping well?
Yeah, I suppose from a work situation, involved in the same environment as yourself and Craig. You know, working as a games promotions officer in Armagh. But unfortunately, with this pandemic and schools being closed, you know, we're limited to what we can do. You know, so you know, basically, you know, we're on furlough down the north. We don't have the luxury of you boys in the south. So yeah, look, you know, so you know, it is what it is. You got to deal with it and you got to adapt. You know, so I'm just using that time to probably upskill myself as a coach. And suppose I've took on I'm doing the next coach. There's a next coach program on in Australia with ex-AFL players and mentors and managers. So I started that Wednesday morning, and that'll keep me occupied at 6:30 in the morning every Wednesday for the next 12 weeks, and hopefully I'll learn loads from that environment.
Definitely you'll be taking plenty of caffeine on board there. Yeah, no, best of luck with that. So suppose we'll just bring Craig in, and I just want to bring it up before we get into the nitty gritty of all things football. You know, managing career, playing career, ups and downs, and maybe a wee bit about Liverpool. I see Craig has the Liverpool top on him, but do you remember a few years ago in I think it was Division 3 in Drogheda, for some strange reason Ciaran McKeever was wearing number 14?
Yeah.
I fondly remember. I think he might have sent you for a hot dog that day.
Yeah, I thought he was in the wrong goals when I seen him lining out.
What's your memory of that goal, Crouch?
I was actually talking to you yesterday about it, Carl. I actually said to you, I believe it exactly I said to you was, did he score a goal against me that day? Because I had a funny feeling you did. All I remember from that day is getting absolutely smashed from minute one. They absolutely ate us alive. And I think we were doing well in Division 3 at the time that year. I think we were both pushing for promotion, and then we played and draw it, and they kicked the life out of us, and that was the end of us. I think they might have went up that year.
Have you a different memory of that goal, Ciaran?
No, look, I suppose I was coming to the end. I think that was 2017. I was probably finished after 2014. Had 3 operations at the end of that year, and probably took the sting out of me. But was talked about leaving, retiring and dropping off the squad. But suppose myself and Geezer would go back a long way, and he encouraged me to stay on and act as a mentor probably to the younger players that was coming through, because he was rebuilding a new team at that stage. And I knew, probably my last 3 years that the amount of game time I would get would be very limited. He talked about, playing me in full forward as a ball winner, and laying it off to forwards that could shoot. But it's coming in along the byline that Sunday afternoon, give Craig the eyes and a fake dummy hand pass, and he went to cut it out and left his near post open and just slotted it in.
Yeah, that
sounds
about right.
The rest is history.
I've been done with that a few times.
And then I scored a goal the following week too against Antrim. So my record in full forward. I think I ended up with 3-1. Not too bad.
Yeah, look, I think, Ciaran, like any podcast, I suppose, you're on a few podcasts before I've had a wee listen to, and haven't really went in, I suppose, deep enough into the coaching side of stuff. I know you're fairly active and very passionate about coaching, so I think, look, we'll chat to you a wee bit about that and see where we go. And obviously your playing career as well is something that we're interested in, and definitely you had a very decorated career. I suppose it's not always measured on trophies, albeit you've won a good few, but even in regards to the international rules setup, so international rules, 4 squads, Ciaran.
Yeah, suppose it's suppose growing up, and suppose as a teenager, 15, 16, was always engrossed in Gaelic games, and had huge love for it and passion for it. Every weekend you were fired in the car to go and watch Armagh play, watch as many matches as you could on television, and then I was always intrigued at that age, even in the international rules, and it was always something that at that age, you always had a goal of you wanted to play for Armagh, and I suppose then you see the international rules, you get engrossed in that there, and it was always an outside goal that I wanted to try and achieve as a player, that to get that opportunity to represent my country. And I suppose it all buys back down to, I remember when I was 16, 17, 18, I was working on site, and I remember I was up in Navan, and we were working on this estate, building walls and garden walls, and remember that the international rules was on around this time, and I remember chatting to your boy that was living in the house, and he goes, "Hey, I said him on the Thursday, I goes, international rules is on tomorrow morning." I goes, "I want to watch that." I says, "Would you mind putting it on?" And I says, "I'll stand at the window and glance in and out as I'm working." And he says, "No bother." I suppose at that stage, I was really engrossed in it, and as I said, it was from an early day. It was always an outside ambition of mine to try and get the opportunity to play for Ireland and pull on that Ireland jersey. And and then along with that, there you're pitting yourself against the best players in Ireland. When you go up there, there's 130 players just be invited in for a trial. You go to Dublin every Friday evening, try a match on the Friday night. You're there all day for Saturday for training and workshops. And that's a process for 10, 12 weeks. And then gradually it cuts down to 80, it cuts down to 50. And then the ultimate goal is that, the next stage is you want to make that final cut, which is 26 players. And once you make that final cut, then the next focus is, I want to fucking start in this team, So it's a driven process over a course of 12, 13, 14 weeks, but, hugely enjoyable one.
Yeah, and you're talking about, I suppose, three or 4 months there of a process, and someone like myself,
I didn't realise it was that long.
Yeah, exactly. Next of suddenly you just say, whether it be Joe Ciaran or whoever it was, names their international rules squad, and you just think, oh well, the boy's got an invite and he's coming on board. But no, I didn't realise, Crouch. No, it was a 3 or 4 months kind of stint, or a 3 or 4 month program that had to go through. And I know I skipped on past Culliana and stuff like that, so we'll come back to that. But just the international rules thing kind of interests me a bit. And yeah, Australia was Australia 2011. No.
We were in Australia in 2008 and 2011. Yeah.
Did you think here on the Aussie boys would take it serious?
Sorry, Craig.
Would you think the Australian boys would take the international rules serious, or because I'd see some of the squads and I would have followed a bit of the AFL, and all the best boys might not necessarily go one tour and then another tour they'd have a full whack of lads. Or, do you think that they kept it serious, or?
I think in the early processes, Craig, they took it serious in the late 2000s and stuff like that there, 2008, 2010, 2011. They had really strong teams out. That was littered with their, as they like to call it, their all-star team, the all-Australian teams. And they had great pride in it. They, and passion for it. And then it sort of tailored off probably after that. Come 2013, they sent weaker teams, and probably had more of a strong base team when you played in Australia. I think a lot of that boiled down to probably the age profile of some of the players and how their clubs probably managed them in the off season, and probably wouldn't allow them to tour on them events because they're probably the wrong side of 30 to try and get the best out of them for their following season, because their pre-season starts brave and sharp after international series. And I think if you're reading up on their stuff, their programs and pre-seasons last 12, 14 weeks with an really tense environment, and a lot of the teams would travel to places with altitude, so a lot of that is a factor as well. But in the early stages it was really competitive, and they sent their best team forward. But in fairness, in the latter years, it has dipped a wee bit.
Yeah, it's strange. I would have seen, I can't remember exactly what one it was, but Paddy Keenan was involved in it, and it was in Crow Park. I remember going up for a few pints that Saturday evening to watch it, and I ended up talking to Adam Goods in Coppers that night. Strangely enough, he's an absolute monster of a man, and I didn't know he'd Irish heritage. His father was Irish Scotch, and he would have really wanted to come along on a trip, especially it being in Ireland. And he would have taken it serious. But I remember looking around Coppers that night, and I remember in my head, I was drunk, but I remember looking over and seeing, say, Cluxton on a chair over there, and I've seen Adam Goods, and the size of some of them men, their shoulders alone, compared to, say, the likes of Cluxton, I don't think Cluxton would be a small man. He's well built, but these boys,
no, definitely not. No.
Level. Yeah, fantastic players, and I think it's a great sport to watch. I love watching it. It's kind of like a throwback to the old school kind of GAA. To me, on the outside looking in, there doesn't seem to be that much tactics as such, but it's a lot about, we'd say, the simple elements of the game, the high feel and the kick pass and the scoring, and then the physical aspect of it. It's impressive. I love watching it, and I hope it continues.
Yeah.
Ciaran,
Look,
was
I'm a
it
huge. Sorry. Go ahead, there, Ciaran.
no was it tough to play in?
Tough playing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
was it tough to play in?
Yeah. Look, I suppose the big thing that we had to get used to was the tackle. In Gaelic games, you can't wrap anybody. You can now and again, but in Gaelic games, you can't wrap anybody and take them to
Yeah.
the ground, So that was the big adoption for us as players, because we always felt that we were physically as strong as them and physically as fit as them, and I suppose on in the earlier years they probably had the upper hand on us on the tactical side of things, because of the interchange in each quarter. That's their game. Where they would rotate players in and out every 2 minutes. They'd say, Carl, you go hard here for 2 minutes, then Craig will come in for 2 minutes, and then I'd come in for Craig after 2 minutes, and it meant that they were always fresh and had runners in that middle third of the pitch that probably caused the overlaps and caused a lot of damage to previous Ireland teams, and we probably struggled to adapt to that, and again, the physicality of the training. But I remember in Anthony Tohill and Sean Byland's time, like two great men, and Geezer was a part of that management team as well. And the big emphasis that them three imposed on the squad was physicality and the tackle, and get used to being wrapped and basically fired to the ground, and the three of them were really tactical astute as well, and they adapted to the interchange players. And I remember that season as well. Every Thursday night for 12 weeks, we went to John Cabinet's gym, SBG, in Dublin, and we just did 5-minute rounds of being lifted and fucked to the mat. You get up, you're lifted again and fucked to the mat, and you were doing that to me for 5 minutes. You got a minute off, and then I'd lift you and fuck you to the mat for 5 minutes. It was just absolute carnage. It was me. I remember myself and Darren Hughes would have got friendly through that time because we're playing with Ulster together and playing with Ireland, and we would have travelled up. And neither of us were fucking fit to drive home on the way home. With all through the weeks that we drive up and down. And I remember two of us sitting in the car park, hanging out the side door of the yoke, maybe a half an hour after the session, being sick, and dizzy going back down the road. But look, they're great memories, and it was a great experience.
Just when you were talking, Ciaran, about them tackles there, I was over in Australia in 2012 and I played club level AFL for 5 months. And I actually enjoyed the wrap tackle. It was easy to pick up myself. If I was tackling somebody, you just obviously just throw your body and try and get something on them. And the other side of it, the flip side of it, was the most difficult. Where in Gaelic, you get the ball in your hands, and even if someone tackles you from behind, you're not going to take too much damage. You can move away. But if you hold the ball over there against them boys too long, you can end up on the top of your head very, very quickly. And I suppose I got dealt a harsh lesson once. I said I never get caught again. But it puts the fear of God in you when you get done once. The ball pops into your hand and you delay that a little bit too long, and you're on top of your head and you're looking up at the sky. You don't know where you are.
Yeah, and there's another aspect of their game that we probably weren't used to in Ireland was, say myself and Craig are going to compete for a ball, and Carl and his marker's going to compete for the ball. If you're within a 5-meter radius, I can bump you, I can completely take you out of the game to go and let my own teammate go and gather the ball, and that has now since come out of the international rules, because I remember in Perth in 2008. Myself and I think it was Campbell Brown or Brian Campbell, whatever his name was going for a ball, and Finney and Hanley from Galway and his marker was going for the same ball. And me and Campbell Brown, I think his name was we're shoulder by shoulder going hard for it. Next thing, he fucking veered off to his right and absolutely just mows Finney and Hanley. It's on, you'll find it on YouTube somewhere. He nearly decapitated him, but that was their game. If you're in a 5-meter radius, they were fit to take you out of it to let the other player go and get the ball. But great times.
Yeah, and even I think just before we move on from that, I think you're vice captain in 2008 or 11.
11
was it?
2011. Yeah. So Yeah, look, that was a great achievement, in its own right. I suppose Stephen Cluxon was captain, I was vice captain. We all know that Stephen doesn't like the media side of things, so I think Stephen had his head cleared out at that time. We were over in Australia that year, and a lot of media stuff to go with that. Every other day you're away at press conferences, you're away talking, away doing photos, and obviously Stephen wouldn't do it, so I had to go and do it, and myself and Anthony Tohill, and it was a great experience for me. Got to learn loads off Stephen and the management team, and not alone that, the rest of the players, so yeah, it was special times.
Yeah, and like you said, they're very proud moment, I'm sure. So where it all starts, at the club. What
Yeah.
what was life like in your household growing up in regards to Gaelic football? I know you've a brother, one brother. No, you've two
One
brothers,
brother.
do you?
No, one brother, two sisters.
I think you've another brother.
Sorry,
You lost me.
go and hear you now. Yeah.
Sorry.
My family, my father's father, we were big, proud Cullyhanna people, and I directly didn't live in Cullyhanna or Darcy, where my family home is now. We lived on the outskirts of Uri. Probably it was handy for mom because she was a nurse in Daisy Hill Hospital, so it was probably handy for her to commute. But vague memory, from being 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, being fired in the back of the car 3 nights a week, and Dad would take us out to Cullyhanna, to football training, and then be the same every weekend. We would always be going out to my nanny's house anyway, and I suppose that was just an advocate that the passion and love that my father and his father and obviously the McKeever family would have for Cullyhanna, suppose it was handy for where we lived that I had Cara Cruplin and Shane O'Neill's on my doorstep, and every 3 nights or 4 nights, 5 nights a week that you were driving past both them football pitches, because basically my father wanted to keep that McKeever name associated with Cullyhanna, look, we had some great memories and special occasions growing up in as Cullyhanna players. Probably from an underage point of view, we had been quite successful, and the teams that we had all played on, getting to All Ireland Field finals, minor county finals, winning under 16, under 12s, under 14 league and championships, and under 21 championships, and obviously progressing that in the senior level. So it was great times.
Yeah, Chris, it's mad how, I know you're after naming 12 and 14 under 16 championships, but usually anyone who plays Gaelic football would play kind of underage soccer as well, but you never hear of a top player saying, "Oh, I remember winning X, Y, and Z with my schoolboy league team," or isn't it brilliant in the GA how we always remember those under 11s and 12s and 13 championship wins. It's unique, and I think it's probably something to do with that whole club, with the the sense of community and the sense of loyalty you have to your club. A club's a special place, and like you said, Ciaran, you're quite successful enough with the club. Was it intermediate or senior? You won a championship before.
Intermediate, I think, was it?
Yeah, we won an intermediate in 2008. I suppose we growing up in an era where Crossmaglen was so dominant, and it was very hard to break that juggernaut of beating Cross. They were an exceptional team, and many teams before us tried to do it, and we came close on a couple of occasions, but we just couldn't get across the line. And that doesn't mean that we were a bad team. We just come up against an exceptional Cross McGlen outfit, and that's just the harsh reality of the situation. And you got to accept that, and unfortunately that we never got that ultimate goal of winning a senior or a club senior championship.
How was your relationships, Ciaran, being with them Cross boys, considering there was a good few of them in the Armagh panel with you at the time?
Yeah, look, you gotta accept, there'll be a lot of rivalry there between Cullyhan and Cross McGlen, because you're only 5 miles apart from each other. We grew up together. We constantly played against each other at underage finals, under 12s, under 14s, under 16s, minors, under 21s. We would, we all played county development squads together, the same age brackets, county minors. We socialised together. So I wouldn't say yes, there was rivalry there, but there was never any bitterness towards each other. We accepted it for what it was. And every time we come into an Armagh environment, our ultimate goal was to be the best players that we can be, and we knew that we'd push each other on to be that. And ultimately, and once we stepped into the Armagh environment, it was for the greater good of Armagh, and to leave that Armagh jersey in a better place for the next generation. And and regardless of what club you came from or what success you had at the club, none of that stuff ever come into question. You're there to do one job and one job only, and that was to make Armagh better.
Yeah.
You were you're young going into the Armagh senior setup. I know you had success, and on All Ireland winning captain, All Ireland under 21 winning captain. I think was it. Then you probably went into the senior setup the year after, was it?
No. Probably to go back to 2002, Armagh won the All Ireland. Could remember myself, and Ciaran, and out there. We would have been around the same age growing up, and and played in all minor squads together, and all that there type of things. Remember, we were all playing. I was playing club senior at that stage. What age was I? 2002, 16 was I? No, I think it was 18 or 19. 18 or 19. And I remember 2002, Armagh were getting ready for the All Ireland semi-final against them Dublin, and I remember my phone ringing one evening, and it was Ciaran saying that he had a couple of injuries, and would I mind coming down to playing an in-house match. I remember at the time saying I tweaked my quad in a club senior match 10 days previous, and I wasn't right. I could run all right, but I couldn't kick the ball. Some people might tell you I couldn't kick it anyway, but I couldn't kick the ball. And I remember saying to Joe, fucking Joe Ciaran rings you, you're not going to say no. I remember saying, yeah, definitely I'll go down and play in the in-house match. And I went down that following Thursday evening, played in the in-house match, enjoyed it. It was a great environment to be in. And then, obviously it was always an ultimate goal that I wanted to go and represent Armagh, because I played through the development squads, played county minor, and then got a taste of it that night. And I remember coming home, and my dad would be asking me questions, and mom and that there, and I remember saying that's something I want to do. I want to be in that environment next year, which was 2003. And I suppose we were all coming out of we were just ready. 2003, we were 19, 20, and suppose after we were playing for Armagh on the 20s, 21s, it would have been back then at that stage, and the Armagh National League was just finishing up in 2003. They were getting ready for the last match. They were playing Kerry down in Killarney, and my phone rang one Thursday evening. It was Joe Ciaran and invited me in the squad. And around that time, he took myself, a good friend of mine and clubmate Malachy Mackin, into let Aaron into it, and a number of other younger players, Finney Mayardi and Brian Mallon. And we had all come up through the ranks together, and were quite friendly and trained hard together, even when there was no training to be done or no football to be done. So we got that opportunity. And yeah, like and it's from 2003. Like we were just in a bubble of great experience and unreal occasions with Armagh. And don't get me wrong, we hit some dark times too towards our end of our careers, but we had some really special moments.
It's brilliant, Ciaran, to hear that. Just you were saying when you first got into the panel that after that first trial game you went home and your parents were asking, well, how did you get on? Like, it's playing for your county, it's not just such an individual thing. It brings so many people around you in, and it's a wonderful experience. Like, I know myself, like, how important it would have been to my family that I was there. Like, it's not just about me and achieving something I wanted to achieve. It was so important to your family, and even hearing you say that then, I'm sure it's the same for everybody, and it is a fantastic thing to hear back.
Yeah, massive. Like, I know myself from my own experience, like, every morning you left the house, or, and even the latter stages there when you weren't living in the house, before I went to play for Armagh, the first place I would go to would be to my home house, have a cup of tea with my mum and dad, because I knew what satisfaction and what joy that was going to take to them later on in the day, like, so, and then obviously the brothers and the sisters would arrive over as well, and then I'd head on my way, get a hug from the outlaw, and her telling me to look after myself, and away I went, like, so, but yeah, great memories.
Here, so look, like you said, Ciaran, you went in and you were lucky enough when Joe gave you that call that there was 5, 6, maybe seven of you that grew up playing together with Armagh and were all invited into the squad. Like, did that make it easier to go into that dressing room with those guys around you? Even though you had some big names there at the time, like the lads are after winning the All Ireland the year before, so you've Oisin and and Stevie McDonald there, and obviously Geezer. Just 3 players that spring to mind, like, big names in Armagh football. Like, does it make it easier to the integration into the squad with those 6 or 7 lads getting in with you?
No, like, definitely not. Like, obviously we were all comfortable with each other, and around each other, us 7, like, but we were 19, just turned 20, like, 2003 Armagh was only after winning the All Ireland the year before that, 2002. So we were going in an environment where was, people talk about, where Dublin's at now, like, Armagh was at that stage in 2000, in the early 2000s till probably 2008. We were going in an environment that was driven, that was, accepted not more than being every time you turned up, you had to be X and you had to perform, like, so it was tough, I suppose. On our first week in that squad was away to a training camp in Bath, so, which probably helped us a wee bit because we were away for 6 days together with the whole squad. We were training twice a day, and that probably helped us bed in a wee bit quicker than probably turning up two or three times a week. We probably wouldn't have bedded in till about maybe week 4, week 5 in that situation. But the week that Joe took us in, he rang us on the Thursday and said, "Have your bags packed for Sunday evening because we're going to Bath for a 6-day training camp after this National League." Like, so yeah, so and then, like, sure.
I wouldn't say there was any pints drank then over that 6-day period at all.
No, like, like we went in, we were in La Manga, like, it's well known that Armagh went to La Manga for a lot of training camps as well, the hot weather and stuff like that. But, they were training twice, maybe 3 times a day. We had like, in them environments, we had loads of expertise coaches coming in to work with us. Remember that week in Bath, we had Sean Edwards, the Welsh, he's now the France rugby defensive coach, and we would have had Mike Ford, who was involved in England rugby setup that time, who was an English defensive coach. So we would have them boys over with us regular for expertise in defence and communication side of things.
So you telling me that, like, back then, like, the Armagh was like the way I suppose everyone sees Dublin now, like there was no fucking drink?
Man, I'm not saying that there was no drink. We celebrated.
Was it that serious?
We celebrated.
Oh, I'm
Oh
saying
man, we
was
were
it like that's yeah, and that high performance environment, like was that? I know you spoke
I
about it there
give you
a few minutes ago.
Armagh was, back then, like, you go into the 2000s. I'll just give you a snippet. Like, we didn't have to. We turned up to training with our football boots. Our gear was hung up. Our gear was hung up in the changing room for us.
Jesus.
You come in after training. All we had to take was a pair of football boots and a towel. You come in after training, take your gear off, put it in the waste baskets, lift your football boots, and out the door you went. Like, come back the next night. There'd be a different training kit hung up in the change room for you with your name on it. We were living like, I like to call it premiership players in a Gaelic environment. Back then, like, suppose I would have got friendly with geezer. When I come in, I would have first person I probably would have went to, like, to try and learn the ropes and went underneath his wing, like, and around that time, don't get me wrong, you're in the middle of the Celtic Tiger, so everywhere was booming. I was working with my uncle and my father's not there now. Not that I did much work. I probably went and did the 10 o'clock tea run and the 1 o'clock tea run to the shop, and then and then and then and then kept them in crack after that. So I was in an environment where whereas probably I could take a day off a week of work because my uncles were heavily involved in Gaelic. He was the chairman of Culliana Club at the time. I was working with my fathers and my uncles and all my cousins, like, so I wasn't really tied down as such. But I remember on a Tuesday night we had trained with Armagh. I would travel back to Dublin with Geezer on that night. We'd train three times on the Wednesday. We would do an early morning gym session, go get lunch, we'd do a pitch session, get food, and then we'd do a hot yoga session that evening. And then I would get the bus back down the road for Wednesday night to go to work Thursday morning. And that's the environment that I was involved in the mid 2000s. And when people talk about Dublin now, they're probably taking that to another level, but back in the mid 2000s, Armagh was at that level and had created that environment, and it was special, really special environment to be in.
Yeah, no doubt, and involved with special players as well. As we know that there was a lot of household names involved in those squads, and like I know Ciaran has won, 2 or 3 Ulsters in that time as well. Some big days in Croke Park. In the Ulster Championship, there was a bit of a rivalry there with Tyrone over in that kind of the first 10 years of the 2000s. As such, some big games and why didn't you kick on and win another All Ireland or two?
I wouldn't say, like, there's no definite why we didn't win it. Like, you go back to that era, like, in that 10-year spell, like, in Ulster, Armagh won 7 Ulster titles and Tyrone won 3. And in that era, Tyrone won 3 All Irelands and Armagh won 1. Like, so it's ultimately, like, you go back to, Tyrone beat us in a 2003 All Ireland final. Obviously ourselves and Armagh would be a bit aggrieved with that there because of what happened to Damon Margin that day. But at the same time, you can't take away the quality and the execution of the block Conor Gormley done and Stevie McDonald that day that probably ultimately got thrown across the line. Like, because Stevie in that position, you'd be 9 times out of 10 confident that he's putting that ball away. Then you go into 2004. I wouldn't say we took Fermanagh for granted. We were quite confident in that game early on, 4-1 up. Damon Martin hits the crossbar that would have probably put a 7-1 up. Then Enda McNulty gets sent off. Then that changes the whole complexity of the game. It becomes a different game. And end up getting pipped at the death by Fermanagh by a point. And that was probably a year that, after the hurt of 2003, that you felt that, we had to get across that Fermanagh game. Armagh would have went and won the All Ireland, no question about it. Then you go to 2005, roller coaster year. Played Tyrone in an Ulster final draw match, beat them in a replay. then play them in an absolute humdinger of an All Ireland semi final and get pipped at the death. So we're coming up against a really good Tyrone team around that time, a really good Kerry team, and back then, it was, you used to love playing Dublin, because there was absolutely no middle or no bottle in them, and every time you're drawn against Dublin, you were quite comfortable and quite content that you get across the line. But how things have changed.
Yeah, just on that, right? So you talk about how in that 10-year period, you won seven Ulsters, Tyrone only won 3, they won 3 All Irelands, you lads only won 1. So like your dominance in Ulster, I suppose, over that period, right? And you're after speaking about a few games there where it could have went one way if the ball bounces one way. You win that game. Does that make it even more special, in your opinion, what Dublin has done over the last, I suppose, look at it now, 10 years really, since 2011, since was the first All Ireland. Like, so does it make it that special, you think, in your opinion, what they are doing now, after seeing how hard it is to get there, like on a consistent basis?
Look, there's no question about it. It's unique what they've done. You gotta bow your hat to them, But on the flip side of that, they're absolutely not being challenged in Leinster. So they're coming into All Ireland quarterfinals, they're fresh. All Ireland semi-finals fresh, But that's not being disrespectful to Dublin, But it is what it is. They're winning matches in Leinster at 15 points. I'm probably not getting a test until All Ireland semi-finals. But on the same side of that, there you gotta admire them, and you gotta tip your hat to them for what they've achieved. 5 All Irelands in a row, or six, and and who's to say it'll stop at 6? And that's the scary thing. But I think there are a lot of factors going in their way, that has come quite evident in the public domain there this past number of months, that obviously the funding and structures that they can put in place through funding, and compared to every other county, is definitely giving them an advantage, and that won't be closed this year or next year. It's going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years before that gap's closed. And with that gap to close, it's going to take a lot of probably people in Dublin to take their eye off the ball to allow that to happen.
Yeah, no doubt. It's scary. It's scary. But again, it's just it's class to watch. In fairness, as well. I know we talk about how easy, like you said, how easy some games to have, but when you really look and kind of analyze and focus on what to do, it's it takes serious coaching and I suppose self-discipline to do some of the things that to do, and no, they're great to watch. And Craig, just before we move off from, I suppose, the Armagh side of things, is there anything over the years since maybe you've played or even watched them that stood out, or that you enjoyed about the Armagh kind of mentality, as firstly as a player playing against them, and then as a fan watching them?
As a fan watching them, it would have been back when they were on top of the game back in the early 2000s. It was the free flowing forward play, off the cuff, like McDonald, McConville, big as a Clark that was on the edge of the square. It was just I love that style of football, and then the aggression around the middle and the defence. It was just, to me, that's pure football. That's what I love to watch, and I'd even love to watch it now, and that's why I probably like Kerry for so long, was the little bit of genius when we say Cooper and the big man on the edge of the square, but no one would ever bully them around the middle, and Armagh have been like that for a long time. And I suppose they're probably getting back to that now with the flair of Rian O'Neill and Stephen Campbell and Jamie Clark. How could you not want to watch these lads play? And I know from playing against them, they always had the aggression. You were never going to go up there. You could play, I won't name certain counties, but Louth's probably one of them, to Ciaran. But when we go out and play a team, you kind of know well, we're not going to get bullied here. This is going to be a game of football, and we're probably going to win it if we play well. But when you play Armagh, and I take it back to that 2017 game where you're going in, and I'm thinking to myself, right, this is going to be a really hard game here today. But that was probably my first experience of a goalkeeper. I don't know whether they done it, but it felt like they done it with the high press from a kicker. I remember standing on the cone, and I was looking out, going, "Jesus, where am I kicking this ball?" And there was just orange jerseys everywhere. But that was just probably sums them up. The intensity, the aggression, the focus was always there, regardless whether they were in Division 3 or Division 1. They never let up. Regardless whether they had world beaters in the team or average players in the team. They still brought aggression and passion. And I suppose it's probably a note that a lot of teams can take, that they need to bring it, regardless whether they're in form or out of form. They need to bring aggression, focus, and intensity to a game and make it difficult for opposition. I don't know whether, Ciaran, you think, as an Armagh team, was that something that was spoke about, or was just that natural that came from the club game in Armagh, that people just, it was an aggressive place to be and it was an intense place to be?
Yeah, you go back to that time, like, you know, Armagh club football was really, really competitive back then. You had obviously Crossmaglen at the top of the pile. You had Pearshogs competing against Crossmaglen. You had Drummond competing. You had Mullaban. You had Clonagale was still senior that time. We were floating in and out. Cullyhanna, you know, we were like a yo-yo team back then. We were up at senior back then, intermediate, you know, but you know, competitive club football was really, really competitive back then, like in Armagh, and obviously, you know, and that carried into the county senior squad, and you know, and then they obviously, you know, you had absolutely serious leaders within that squad. You had the Geezer, you had McGrain, you had Mars, and you had the McEntees, you had Bumpy O'Hagan. Like, you know, that team was littered with insane men, and obviously then you had a great manager at the top that was heading a whole lot in Joe, like, you know, and Joe always went outside to look for expertise, to get different people in. And we spoke about earlier there about Sean Edwards and Mike Ford, two boys from a rugby background, but was based around, both of them were like, that time Sean Edwards was the Welsh defensive rugby coach and Mike Ford was the England defensive rugby coach. And the whole emphasis, you know, that we based ourselves around that time was aggression in the tackle and communication. And once you took them two things, obviously there was always natural and gifted footballers there. Everything else fell into place. But the two key things that was really driven in that thing was being aggressive in contact and having a communication side of things. Like, and then obviously the coaching side of things takes place itself, takes part of itself. That, you know, if you do enough coaching and enough repetition of the coaching, what way you want to play and how you want to play, that will come natural on the pitch. But every day we stepped across the line, you had to take that aggression. If you didn't take that aggression, you're as well sitting at home, to be honest. And that's still to this day. I feel if you don't take aggression to the table nowadays, you might as well sit at home.
Yeah, we could always feel that playing against you, that's what you're going to come up against, regardless what time of the year or what competition you were playing. You're in for a battle.
Yeah, no, for sure, lads. Just before we move, I know I'm conscious of time. You've been very kind with your time, so I just before we move off from the Armagh side of things, something I'll ask you. Again, don't have to go into too much detail if you don't want to. But I suppose, two questions. What was, I suppose, you spoke about earlier on that there was a few low days in the Armagh career and football career in general. So out of the Armagh career, what was probably the lowest day? And then on the flip side, you know, what was the happiest day, I suppose, wearing the orange jersey?
Yeah, you know, I wouldn't say any specific day was a low day. Like, you know, I always got great pride in pulling on an Armagh jersey, whether you win, lose, or draw. Like, you know, and you know, along that way you get upset, you know, you get sent off, you get injuries, you get all these things. But that's part and parcel of the thing. Like, you know, and you know, suppose from, like, you know, the level that we were at when I first came into the Armagh environment, like, you know, and I remember them boys telling us that time, like, you know, like we were on the crest of a wave, like, you know, it was fucking, you know, every weekend you're away at training camps. You know, every other year you're competing in Ulster finals, All Ireland quarterfinals, semi-finals, you know, and stuff like that there. And you know, and I remember the senior players in the team telling us, because we were young, like, and they were saying, like, there's going to be dark days. There's going to be dark days ahead for you. It's like, you know, we went through them. We're in this environment now. We're in a crazy web, but there will be bleak years ahead. Like, you know, and when that happens, you know, you've got to be there to weather the storm and try to take it out the other side. And you know, that's probably where I felt my last 3 years were at. Like, you know, as I said, after the 2014 campaign, got three operations. I wouldn't say the sting was gone out of me, because every time I went to train and I trained hard, but probably just wasn't fit to recover and train at the level that I wanted to train at to play. Like, you know, and I remember speaking to the manager and saying, I'm done here. Like, I'm gone. Like, I just don't have that bite no more. And you know, I'm just struggling here. And I remember them saying to me, like, you know, just sit tight. You know, what we spoke about, you know, my roles and what they wanted me to do. Like, you know, and obviously that was tough to take, you know, from the level that I was at, and knowing that I was going to be a part-time player and probably maybe sometimes not even playing, and just being more like a mentor role, like, you know. And but that was, you know, probably what I was, you know, what them boys had told me way back in the early 2000s, like, this day might come. And you know, and it was tough, don't get me wrong, it was tough. Them 3 years, it was like fucking pulling hands teeth out.
Yeah.
You know, trying to get boys to buy into what I'd seen as a player growing up, and to what I knew as a player, the level that you had to be at to compete at that level. Like, you know, when you get boys that would come in and play 1 year and then fuck off the next year, or maybe be there 2 weeks and not get a game and say, I'm not staying about this environment. You know, so them 3 years was tough, trying to get boys to buy into what is accepted and what you need at that level. But you know, but at the end of the day, it was enjoyable, and you know, and there's a good group there at the minute, and you know, hopefully that they've learned something from that.
And,
Sorry, Carol, just
go
one.
ahead,
I read something recently there. You had a bit of back and forth with an ex-Laois footballer presenter a couple of years back, and obviously him mouthing off and would say in the press. Would you have found in your career, or would you have seen in your career, external factors distracting or getting on top of players? Do you know what I mean? So, like, listening to the bad stuff that's said about them, because like, it happens all the time, be it locally or nationally. There's always somebody wanting to give out or have their say or say something negative about you or somebody else in the team. Do you reckon it would have affected many players, or even yourself in your time?
Yeah, look, there's no question. You know, them stuff too. If you let it creep in, it would definitely affect you. Like, you know, you know, I'd be strong-minded, and I'd be, you know, it's something that I wouldn't fucking dwell on, to be honest. Like, you know, I remember you go back to actually 2014, like, you know, that whole row against Cavan and the parade, like, you know. I remember, Jesus Christ, the abuse I was getting after that. And I remember wherever my mom got a hold of the Anglo-Celt paper, it's a local Chatham paper. I remember coming home one evening, and there she was at the kitchen table reading it and crying. And I lost it. Like, I lost it. I was, what the fuck are you doing reading that shit for? Like, you know, and I remember grabbing the paper and fucking in the bin and heading out the door to training. Like, you know, and it probably would have got to my mother, probably more so than me, because, you know, she probably reading stuff in the paper. I wouldn't, when I was playing, I didn't really read too much in the papers. But, you know, probably, and, you know, probably to what I would have been brushed it off quick enough myself, you know, but probably affected my parents and my brother and my sisters, because they'd be reading the papers and probably out and socialising in different circles and hearing other people talking about stuff. But, you know, it is what it is. You know, you're in that environment, you're at that level, you're there to be criticised, and you just, it's part and parcel of the game.
Yeah, no, I'd say the same myself. It would have been more so family. It would have affected more than me, but not nice to see.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
But it's still, my ma still hasn't told me how she got that paper. But
Hey, she's an Irish mother. She can get whatever she wants to get. The Irish
I
mothers
know, yeah.
have special powers.
Yeah, but it used to be funny. Like every Sunday morning, you'd be heading off to play a club match. Like, you know, people thought I was mad. My younger brother Peter, he's 10 times worse, and and 10 times worse. And mom she works in A&E in Daisy Hill, and she'd be going to play local club matches, and there'd be always these specific games should just go that morning. Jesus, please behave yourselves today. So she'd be hard afraid of either me or him coming in, or someone from the team coming in and maybe blaming us or accusing us of it. But, you know, sure, it was great times.
I know Peter, so I can back up what you're saying there, Ciaran. I seen him hit a punch bag a few times.
Probably he's proper mad. He was actually a really good corner back. Just unfortunately, he just didn't stick at it. Like, you know, probably could have. He played county minor. No doubt that if he had stayed at it, he would have been nice for maybe the two of us to play at inter-county senior level. But he was more interested in working, making money, where I was the opposite. I wanted to play football without the money. But
so I suppose I'll just keep you for another few minutes, Ciaran, if that's okay. We'll just finish up this with something that I said we talked about at the start. That obviously me and Crouchy are very passionate in regards to coaching, and you know, Craig has set up his own Twitter page, and you know, with the Gaelic goalie, and is interested. You know, obviously he's a goalkeeper, so he's passionate about that, and myself involved with it with a team, and have been involved for the last few years with teams, and yourself as well. And I first came across, I think we first met back in 2015, and you come in to coach my own club, Clanagale.
yeah.
And it was interesting just listening there to say that, you know, 2014 you felt as if you were done, and you know, the managers wanted you to stay on, and to be that mentor kind of fella, you know, to be that I suppose, you know, experience head in the group to let the young players bounce off, and to try and help them with their integration into the senior team. And is that how, like, was it easy for you then to kind of, you know, transition into coaching because of that one, that you were kind of being you know, you're coaching the lads one-to-one maybe in the Armagh setup to a certain degree, or being that shoulder to lean on, and two, that, you know, did you get a wee bit more freedom from your managers because of that, to be able to go and coach, because I know you're still playing, or were you just really fucking stretched for time, and you know, were you out every night of the week, like?
No, look, I'll just answer that question first, and I'll go back to my coaching, why I got involved in coaching. You know, throughout them, you know, I never ever missed an Armagh session. You know, in them years, like, you know, obviously, you know, probably buys back to when I was still playing, and in when I was still fit and in good shape and being competitive, like, you know, I still would have dabbed into coaching. I would have went and done one-off sessions for people and stuff like that there. And I think, you know, go back to that question, 2015, I was actually asked up to do a one-off session for the clans. I would always be in out of the Carrickdale Hotel on the border. You know, the John McParland and Paddy McParland, that would have been very good to us as Armagh players down through the years. And there's your own clubmate Marty, not too sure of his second name. He's a clans man, works in it. He's actually the manager in it.
The manager, yeah. Martin Kerley.
Yeah. Martin Charity, yeah. And Martin asked me would I be interested in going up to do a session for Barry Cullen. I'm sure both of you know Barry, great football man and a proud Clanagale man and loud man, you know, and obviously went up and did that session. And then just chatting to Barry on and off on the phone when he asked me would I come up and do an session. Then next thing I know, Barry has been there 2-3 nights a week, you know, but, you know, great times and you know, and probably from going from one-off sessions to being then embedded with Barry and yourselves and Clonagale there, and that probably put me on the curve of where I am now. It was obviously development from there onwards, from 2015 to what are we in now, 2001. I suppose even in my younger days in Cullyhanna, I would have managed on the 16 teams, would have managed minor teams, and myself and Mal Mack, and if you're listening to some people and some ex-managers would say we managed the senior team as well. They were always getting the blame for sack and getting managers sacked, and then me and Mal would take, as what do you call them in the Premiership, a caretaking role for 2 or 3 weeks until we got who we wanted in. But look, I always had a huge interest in coaching. I was, even when I was playing, I'd like to say I was probably a student of the game. I always studied the game, tried to study patterns within the game. Probably in my early days, I was designated as a man marker. And I always would have been watching videos of players and drawing a map of the pitch out and putting an X in areas of the pitches where maybe he picked up the ball, what side he turned on, and you always found these wee patterns occurring, and then you'd look deeper into that, and I'd say, right, he picks the ball up there, but who supplies him the ball, from out the pitch, and then you'd look into that and say, right, if Craig Lynch gets the ball, I know he's looking for Ciaran O'Connor inside, so that's a cue to me to be on my toes, shut down that area of the pitch where he wants the ball and stuff like that there. So it was probably all as a student, any coaching session that probably was ever done through club senior and inter-county, I would have went home and jotted it down, and then and try and put my own wee slant to things. So it was probably always enjoyed the coaching side of things from playing aspect, and then obviously delved in that and done all my coaching badges, and now I've just carried that through and look forward to the next part of the journey.
Yeah, no doubt. And just before, again, Ciaran, I'm very conscious, and like I said, you've been very good with your time, considering there's a new Baba in the house.
You'll get me out of changing nappy, so I'm happy
like I said, I first came across you and met you in 2015 when you were down in the Clans, and Barry Cullen then subsequently moved on and took over at Roach Emmets, a country club based just on the outside, on the outskirts of the dock, and you went in and done the coaching there, and subsequently, really, I went in as your assistant coach, at a young age, and just you talk about being that kind of mentor to the players, and I can definitely see why the management team would want you to stick around to do that to the younger players in the Armagh setup, because that's exactly what you done for me back in 2017, and you could see that again, student of the game, and it was a year that was very, very well spent for me. Watching you and shadowing you and picking up cones and jotting down sessions and everything, and I suppose again that's it kicked off our friendship, and went on and do a few of the coaching awards together, and like I said, really, really top man, and had a good few years, Ciaran, with the Armagh Minors. You had a few years there, and currently at Mayo Bridge. How's the lockdown? How's coaching during a lockdown? How's that been for you?
Yeah, look, it's tough, because there's a lot of uncertainty, obviously with the news coming out from Croke Park the other night, regards that there's going to be absolutely no football until after Easter, so that's 7 weeks away, where there's absolutely nothing happening, and then there's this, will they go club first, will they go county, will they go county first, and there's a lot of uncertainty there for players, and I'm actually have a Zoom meeting with the Mayo Bridge management team and leadership group tonight, just to chat through a few things and try to put we had structure in place, to lead us in a sort of a pathway to get ready for Down had their club leagues to get to start in June. So we had structure and a pathway in place for that. Now we have to rejig that and look at the whole thing again. And and people are saying that whenever we come out of this level 5 or level 5 lockdown after Easter, that they're going to play a club, which I can't see. I still believe that inter-county season is going to go first, and club will be away back at the tail end of the year. Because for in order for club football to play, we've got to go to level 2/3, and I can't see the government jumping from 5 to 2. Anytime soon.
It's going to be very tough, Ciaran, on the club player, isn't it, to go such a long period without any form of training or competition.
Yeah, look, and that's the danger. Like, you hear these boys that have been shouting for the split season, like, and this is the trap that you could fall into with the split season. Like, there's going to be 4 or 5 month periods where there might absolutely be nothing happening. Like, if they go into county season first from January to June, there's 6 months, and then for club football to start from June to December or vice versa. It doesn't matter what way to do it, but there's going to be a period there where club players not going to be doing that for 3 or 4 months. And that's the danger that lies ahead.
Yeah, no, I suppose it still is all up in the air, but lads, hopefully we do have some sort of football this year, and again, no matter if it's something similar that was last year, it's definitely going to be better than zero football. But as coaches and players here, the 3 of us, it's very difficult to try and at times get the motivation to continue to give direction or take direction when there's no end in sight, and there's no plan in place. And look, hopefully like I said, we're back out on the grass, both as coaches and players, as soon as possible. Ciaran, I suppose thanks a million. You've been very, very good with your time, like I said, and you've been the first guest on the podcast. So hopefully not the last one. Hopefully we might get a few listeners, and you never know what might happen. It seems to be the era of the podcast, so we jumped on the bandwagon.
No bother. Thanks for having me, man. Good to chat, and good luck with the podcast. Just wondering, who do I send me invites to, Craig or Carl?
Carl, definitely. He's loaded.
Send it to me, and I'll redirect it to Craig.
You're working through the ice cream business and the delivery business.
Lads, thanks a million. Crikey.
No bother, man.
The best. Ciaran, talk to you soon. Thanks, lads.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. All right. Bye.